the Mandukya Karika of the second chapter, the Vaitatya Prakarana, Gaudapadacharya ji finds it important for us to understand that the entire phenomenal world of objective reality which we all experience both in the waking state and in the dream state, he says that they are both mithya. They are both vaitatya, meaning it does not have an absolute reality. It has a seeming existence, and that seeming existence is unreal, and only the self is real. In this chapter, he systematically proves that the waking state is also an extended dream state. Not much logic is required to eliminate the dream state as an illusion. So in the very first 4 shlokas, he just outright comes and proves it with Shruti, Yukti and Anubhuti, with the help of scriptures, with one's own direct experience, and by logic he completely proves the unreal nature of the dream. And then from 5th shloka onwards, Gaudapadacharya ji extends that simile to the Jagrat Avastha, that the waking state is also an illusion. So in this way, he gives various reasons as to why the waking state is mithya, why the waking state is illusion, why the waking state is not absolute. First, he says in shloka 5 that there is a subject-object relationship, that the object cannot exist without the subject. So the objective reality is illusion, is the first point that he makes. Second point that he makes in the 6th is that the waking state has a limited temporal existence, that it was not there in the distant past, it is not going to be there in the distant future, and something which is not there in the past and something which is not there in the future, then necessarily its existence is not there in the Vartamana Kal, the present as well. And Adau Ante Chayannasti Vartamane Pitattatha, that if it exists in the middle, it is only a seeming reality. And he makes this point, very important point. He makes that if it appears in the now, it is an appearance, and appearances cannot be real. Appearances appear in the very presence of a subject, and the subject validates the appearance, and the subject also validates the disappearance of the appearance. And each one of these appearances are only that they arrive and they depart. But the one who validates the arrival and the departure of the appearance ever is. And thus again he proves that this temporal existence is temporary with juxtaposed next to the absolute permanence of the observer. Second point he makes. Third point, he says that the objects, there is an objection as though raised by a student, that yes, first point is valid, second point is valid, but then he says that there is a purpose for the waking state. The objects have a purpose, and Gaudapadacharya ji says that the objects in the dream state also have a purpose, and that is to bring alive the dream world in the same way the objects in the objective reality of the waking state, their purpose is to help facilitate an experience, and when the experience is over, the objective reality serves no other purpose. And thus he says that the waking world of objects are useful, it has utility in the waking state. The objects of the dream world are useful, they have purpose in the dream state, but once the dream is over, the objects of the dream have no purpose. It has no utility value in the waking. Similarly, the objects of the waking world, once the waking world is renounced and one goes to the dream, the waking world objects have no utility value, so he rejects that argument as well. Then in the 8th shloka he says that there is a uniqueness of objects, and the uniqueness of objects is what makes the dream world dream and the waking world waking. That the uniqueness is that my hunger, my thirst is satiated. He says that the purpose, the hunger and the dream of the dream state can only be satiated by the dream food and the dream water. But the hunger and the thirst of the waking world, only the waking object, waking food and the waking water can satiate the waking hunger. The uniqueness of the objects of the waking world is not the uniqueness of the objects, it is the uniqueness of the instrument which perceives the objects. And thus the reality of the waking state is brought out by the uniqueness is of the instrument. And the example can be taken as the uniqueness of the waking world of a dog is very different than the uniqueness of the waking world of a human being, because what a dog listens to, the human being cannot hear that. So the dog reality is very different than the human reality. So the dog world is unique because of the uniqueness of the dog equipment. The uniqueness of the human world is different because of the equipment of the human being. Thus, the differences in the waking world are not the differences of the objective reality, but the instrument which makes the reality experientiable. And thus he says the uniqueness of experiences is the differences of the equipment. It has nothing to do with the reality. The waking world is a waking world of objects, The dog sees whatever it sees, the dog hears whatever it hears, the human sees whatever human sees, and the human hears. So nothing unique, it is just an illusion. Dogs' intense hearing is an illusion, human beings' relatively less hearing is also an illusion, because the equipment is the one which creates the difference. Now, in shloka number 9 and 10, another argument is as though taken by the student to prove the realness and the illusionness. The realness is known as Satyam. The illusion is none other than the projection, the Maya, the Mithya, the Vaithatya. So Gaudapadacharyaji's contention is the waking world is illusion. Why? Because the dream world is illusion. Why can you say that? Because he draws parallels from the dream world to the waking world. Now, the student says, not so fast, you cannot make that distinction. And he says that what is inside and what is outside makes a difference. That dream is something which is experienced inside the human body. It is inside the human mind, and because it is experienced inside the human body and the human mind, it is an illusion. But you cannot say that about the waking state, because the waking state is experienced outside the human body, outside the human mind, and because it is experienced outside the equipment, you cannot make this assumption that the waking state is illusion, just like the dream state. Dream which is experienced all on the inside is okay, illusion, but the waking is experienced outside, and that which is experienced on the outside is experienced by all in the same way, and thus you cannot reject this as illusion. So Gaudapadacharyaji comes and makes the point that the dream which is experienced on the inside, in the dream state, yes, it is inside the body, yes, it is inside the mind, but in the dream state, in the dream avastha, when one is dreaming, the dream is experienced outside. Dream is not experienced on the inside. Anybody who experiences the dream, in the dream objects are seen, the dream world is on the outside. And it is also experienced that somebody can have a dream inside a dream. And that dream which is experienced inside, in the inside dream you can have another inside dream, and that inside dream is in the dream having another dream, but it is known upon waking up that one dream is I was outside experiencing the dream world, but while in the dream I went to bed and had another dream. Inside the dream I had another dream. Oh ho 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 ho. So Gaudapadacharya ji comes over here and says that this contingent is this what you are contesting is not valid. That the dream is inside, the waking is outside. No, dream which is experienced inside is experienced outside. In the dream world, it is outside of the dreamer. The dream world is outside of the dreamer, and the dreamer experiences as though he is experiencing it outside. Thus, he says, that's where we left off in shloka number 9. Swapna vrittavapi tvantaha Swapna vrittavapi tvantaha Cetasa kalpitam tvasat Bahishcheto gruhitam sat Drushtam vaitatyametyoho. So, swapna vrittau, in the dream state, api tu antaha cetasa. In the dream state also, the dream is experienced inside the mind. Kalpitam, it is projected. Tu asata, it is unreal. Bahishcha, but on the outside, gruhitam sadrushtam. But what is said that bahihi on the outside, chetaha, outside the mind. What is outside the mind? What is talked about is a waking state over here. Gruhitam sadrushtam, it is seen as real. So vaitatyam etayoho, of these both, how can you say that the waking which is seen as the outside of the mind, how can you say that to be illusion? Continuing that same, both of them are taken together. Jagrat vrittavapi tvantaha Cetasa kalpitam tvasat Bahishcheto gruhitam sat Yuktam vaitatyametyoho. So now he is saying that similarly, in the same way, Jagrat vrittavapi tvantaha, in the waking state also, what is imagined within the mind is considered to be illusion. Jagrat vrittavapi tu antaschetaha, the waking world, cetasa kalpitam, based upon the mind itself, the waking state is seen. Bahishcha bahihi chetaha gruhitam satyuktam vaitatyametyoho. When it is seen bahihi, outside the mind, it is considered to be real, but actually in reality it is illusion. So this is the point that he brings out over here. I explained that the objection that the student is bringing is, the student is saying that in the dream state the objects are on the inside, the dream is on the inside, so I can accept that the whole thing is kalpana. Kalpana, a projection of the mind. So the mind has created the dream state. Okay, let that be unreal. But how can you say that the outside the mind has projected? Outside world, it is not a kalpana of the mind. It is seen outside the mind. If it were a projection of the mind, it would have to be inside the mind. So, over here Gaudapadacharya ji is saying that no, in reality this is not true, because the dream is a projection of the mind. Mind has projected the dream, you are seeing the dream. But that projection is so perfect, you're thinking it is inside, but inside the mind creates two worlds, inside the mind and outside the mind in the dream state. And the dream is actually experienced outside the mind, just like the waking world. So there is no difference as to how a dream world is experienced and how the waking world is experienced. Both are none other than projection. Both are unreal. One projection is easy to accept that it is unreal because you have a waking state to prove that it was inside. But the waking state, when you say you experience the waking, when you say you experience the dream is experienced where? In the dream. But the reality of the dream is only questioned when you wake up. When you are in the dream, you don't question whether it is real or not. The reality of the dream is only questioned when you wake up. So the reality of the waking, when will you question? Because you are in the waking state, you are experiencing and saying that the waking is outside your mind. But the reality of the waking is, it is experienced. Just like the dream was experienced. And when we question who experienced the dream, we can say that the one who experienced the dream was the dreamer. So then who experienced the waking world? It was the waker. But when do you negate the waker? Only when you go back to dream. But what Gaudapadacharya ji is saying, there is another state that you wake out of from the waking, to say that even the waking is an illusion. And only from that standpoint you can reject this. Because from that standpoint you can say even the waking is inside the consciousness. It is, waking can never be experienced without consciousness. Dream can never be experienced without consciousness. But we forget the fact that the dreamer, when the dreamer is dreaming, dreamer has forgotten the fact that he is consciousness. And when the waker is experiencing the waking world, the waker forgets the fact that the waker actually is consciousness. Without consciousness, without being alive, the world cannot be experienced. So, these two are, Gaudapadacharya ji refutes and rejects this idea that because it is inside, it is illusion, and because it is on the outside, it is real. But inside who and outside who? You are only saying it from that standpoint. And as long as you are in that standpoint, you can never ever be just. You will always be biased towards the standpoint because you don't have any other standpoint. So now 11, 12 and 13, these are very important shlokas where he now draws the simile. But we will skip these three for now, go to 14 and 15, and then we will come back to 11, 12, because the student raises two objections, and these two objections if we see and then we go back to 11, 12, 13, then we'll be able to see properly why the dream state, why the waking state is equated to dream state, because he draws the conclusions, Vedantic conclusions in 11, 12 and 13. So we'll go to 14. In the 14 shloka, he raises one very important point. And the important point that the student raises is, dream is experienced in one time frame. These are very important, points. It's important we understand. If we don't understand, we should try to understand, because it will help us firmly accept the unreality of the waking state. Because our experience every waking moment is, it is real, it is real, it is real. And because I've taken it as real, I allow it to persecute me. And the waking state persecutes me in terms of the joys and sorrows, the pain that I go through, the suffering that I go through. So I experience the pluralistic world. There is no problem with the experience of the pluralistic world except when it creates pain and sorrow. So the whole idea of Vedanta is to realize that the pain and the sorrow that I go through is actually not there. That is the thesis statement of Bhagavad Gita, Ashocyananva shochastvam. You grieve for what should not be grieved for. So your grief, Arjuna, has no basis. Yes, you go through the motions of life, that I cannot deny. But what I can help you reject is not sorrow. You experience sorrow, and because it is an experience, you can toss it. You are somebody other than that. That is what Vedanta tries to teach. So, if we understand that, then I can live in the waking state, go through the motions of waking state without rejecting it, without getting dejected, sad, mad, angry, all those things, and yet remain my cool and calm, go through and yet be intact with my own true being. To help facilitate that understanding, all these things are brought out and said that come to reject the waking state, come to reject the waking state, come to reject the waking state. It is an objective reality, you are the subject. It's bound by time, you are beyond time. It has utility while you are in it, but outside no utility. The uniqueness is of the equipment, not anything unique about you. You are consciousness, that is all. The dream which is inside is unreal, outside is real. No such thing as inside, outside, because actually both are experienced inside consciousness. All these points, beautiful points he makes for meditation, for us to contemplate. This is a Upanishad on contemplation, Nididhyasan, so that we can slide into deep abidance of Turiya, that I am that. So now the student raises a very important point. The student says that the dream state is experienced in one time. The time of the dream is one. But the student says the time of the waking state is not one, it is two. Why? Because there is a seeming continuum of the waking state which cannot be rejected. When I wake up from my dream, that time of the dream is over and I wake up. When I go back to bed the next day, I can never enter the exact same time of that dream to continue that dream. Dream happens in time and place. Waking happens in time and place. So when I experience dream, that dream time is one, dream place is one. Boom, I experience, I come out of dream, dream is over and I realize, but if I want to continue that dream, I cannot. That time is over. But when I reject waking state and I go to the dream state and I create a whole new dream, and when the dream state is over and I come back to the waking state, I recognize the continuum of the previous day into this day. So that time I have rejected waking state for maybe 8 hours I went to sleep. But upon waking up, I continue where I left off. So, in the waking state, time is experienced in two levels. previous time which I experienced, then I rejected, then I came back and I recognized, that is my child. That was my job. Yes, I am still an engineer after waking up. It is not like a person goes to bed engineer but wakes up a doctor. Whatever the person goes to bed with, the avastha, they may be in severe mourning because the most dear person to them has passed on. And they've cried, exhausted. And out of exhaustion, they got asleep. But when they wake up, they pick up that same sorrow. Because in the dream, they may dream that, they are living a life with that person who has died in the waking state. Because of the shock, they don't want to accept. So the dream is, person's alive. But when they wake up, the sorrow comes back again that, only 3 days have gone by. I have to plan for the 13th day puja, 10th day, 11th day, 12th day, 13th day. All those karmas are to be done, but they are just sitting like a zombie. They are overcome with grief and sorrow. So that time continuum is there. That is what he mentions over here. In very unique language that is brought out. Chittakala hiyentastu dvayakalascha ye bahihi kalpita eva te sarve vishesho nanya hetukaha. So the time which is talked about, first word is chittakala hiye antastu. Chittakala is the time of the dream state is one. Chittakala. Dvayakala ye bahihi. But the waking state, bahihi, waking state, dvayakala are two. And this is what I explained. That's why I gave that little explanation before this. Otherwise, very difficult to understand these karikas without explanation. So, what is said by Chittakala is the dream time. Chitta, mind. Without mind, no dream. So, the time of the dream is the Chittakala. Ye antastu, it is the inner dream state in the mind is the Chittakala, it is one. Dvayakala ye bahihi, outside the mind, the waking world, Dvayakala, one time which I rejected when I went to bed. And the other time is when I woke up, it is the same life that I am continuing. So, there is a seeming continuum of time. There are two times. And this Jagrat Avastha is experienced, one is called Pratyakshakal. Pratyakshakal, that which I am experiencing now. Then the second Dvayakala is called Pratyabhijna Kala. These words are not given over here. Pratyabhijna Kala is the second time. And what is this Pratyabhijna Kala? This is the second time which you experience the world which was there as before, and you recognize it as it was before. That is pratyabhijna kal. When we wake up, if a married person wakes up, he has to accept the fact that he got married previously. And that acceptance that this event happened, and I went to bed and I woke up, and after waking up, to accept what has happened in the past, now that acceptance of what has happened is pratyabhijna kal. I remember, yes, marriage happened. Now I am a married person. A child is born and the person goes to bed and sleeps. It's a new event which has happened. A new mom, a new father. And when they go to bed, that experience of motherhood, fatherhood is not yet developed as much. So in the dream state, the dream is still, I am single, this, that, I don't have children, responsibilities. But once they wake up, oh yeah, child was born yesterday, I am father, I am mother. So validity of the event which happened is very important. This is there in the waking state. So now over here the student brings up this point and tells Gaudapada Charyaji, dream state is governed by one time, waking state is governed by two times, and because waking state is governed by two times, it cannot be called mithya, it is satyam. And dream state is governed only by one time, so it is illusion. So this is the point he makes. Oh ho ho ho, good point he makes. Gaudapada Charyaji says, this two time you're talking about, all these discussion about time. Time itself is a created entity, and even the second time comes to an end when you die. After you die, then when the body dies, the jiva wakes up again, but the jiva wakes up into another waking state of another body is created. Over there, the time of the previous birth doesn't continue. So there is a march of this jiva which goes on and on and on and on. So which time is real? The first birth of the jiva, the 15th birth of the jiva, or this birth of the jiva? This, if you keep on taking, we have had multiple dreams, we have had multiple births. Which one do we accept as real? So he says they are both illusion, and you cannot get stuck on this time. So this is question that he raises, and then he rejects that this is not a proper understanding. Now he raises another question. Avyakta eva yentastu Sfuta eva cha ye bahihi Kalpita eva te sarve Visheshastvindriyantare So now he says, Avyakta eva ye antastu. Antastu, in the inside. In the inside, what do they mean by inside? Dream state. And avyakta, unmanifest. What is unmanifest? The dream object. So avyakta ye eva ye antastu. The dream, in the dream state, the dream objects are as though unmanifest. When they are experienced as real. But when we wake up, we realize there is no tangibility of the dream objects. But when I wake up, sfuta eva hi eva hi, but in the waking state, the dream objects are tangible. The water is hot, I cannot deny it by the temperature of the glass and everything. It's hot water. It's a real phone. But the dream objects don't have reality because they are unmanifest. But the waking world objects have a reality because they are manifest. Kalpita eva te sarve visheshas indriyantare. They, over here, Gaudapadacharya ji says, that cannot be a contingent. You cannot say that because the dream objects are unmanifest, they are unreal, but the waking objects, because they are real, the waking state is real. He says that is not a valid reason to accept the satyatva of the waking state. He says no, kalpita eva te sarve. They are both imagined. The dream world, the dream objects are kalpita, they are imagined. And the waking objects are imagined visheshas tvindriyantare. These visheshata of the waking objects are only brought alive by senses. If I have weakness for alcohol, I am going to find the next bar available to me. And I will go to that bar, and that bar shot glass becomes real for me, and the alcohol in the shot glass becomes real, and that drink becomes real, the drinking experience becomes real, the drunkardness also will be real then. The visheshta is not of the alcohol or the shot glass. The visheshta is because your senses craved it and you went over there. That is it. Kalpita eva ye sarve. For the drunkard, the kalpana is, I want to drink, I want to drink, I want to drink. Gurudev in his videos, the smoker is smoking. And because the thought of the smoking is prevalent, he is going to go out there and find a smoke and he is going to smoke. What else? Because the thought of drinking is so prevalent that the waking state, the waking object, alcohol becomes a real entity for him. They are both kalpita. The dream is a kalpana of the mind, waking is also kalpana of the mind. That is all. That object has arrived in front because you demanded it. If there is no demand for that object in the mind, the object being in front cannot do anything. And even if the object is there and you have not done, it is as good as this object was not there, because it was not even registered. So, kalpita eva te sarve visheshaha tu indriyantare. The difference is in the organs of perception. But Bhagavan Krishna also says, the desire lies in the senses, the desire for the sense objects. And thus, Arjuna, people run after it. So, Gaudapada ji says the same thing, that because of this, now we can say that dream state is mithya. So, Karika number 5, he gave that objects are experienced by the experiencer, the subject, thus it is unreal. 6, he said it is temporally bound, before it wasn't, future it isn't, temporarily it is there, time bound. Then utility was mentioned in the 7th, that was rejected. That utility, food of the waking state cannot go to the dream, dream food cannot come to waking, they are both unique, and thus the utility is only for that, so you cannot say. Uniqueness, the uniqueness is not of the dream object, the waking object, the uniqueness is of the equipment of the dream object and the equipment of the waking being. So that was rejected. Then 9 and 10 came to say that which is on the inside cannot be real, what is on the outside has to be real. He says no, it doesn't work that way, because what is on the inside was also experienced as though it was outside. That was rejected. Then 14 and 15 he came and said that there is a seeming existence of continuum of time. In dream there is only one time, waking the time is long. And Gaudapada ji says that also doesn't work, because we've gone through many a dreams, we've gone through many a lives, and all those things. In reality, when we accept this life, all we know is tendencies, but we have no idea what we were in that past birth, or 20 births before, or 100 births before, and however so many births we have taken. So you cannot say that. Then it is said, because the objects are unmanifest in the dream state and the objects are manifest, he says no, that is the senses because of which the objects are coming. So there is nothing uniqueness about the objects. It is what you have desired. Kalpita te sarve, based upon your vasanas you have projected. So now we can go back to 11, 12 and 13, and this I will take tomorrow. Now in 11, 12 and 13 he makes a brilliant point, that because of all these reasons, waking state is an illusion, just like dream state. And he brings the Siddhant of Vedanta. So that we will do tomorrow. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Go through these points.